So, a D.C. judge just apologized to Trump's wannabe assassin because his conditions in jail were too harsh. Cole Allen was arrested, charged, and placed in temporary suicide watch in a padded cell. Pretty fair for a guy charged with trying to kill the sitting president. But his judge, Zaya Faruqi, complained, saying that some Jan 6 defendants were treated better. In fact, it was so inhumane to Cole, the judge said, at a minimum, I should be apologizing to him. We're obligated to make sure he's taken care of. Mr. Allen, I'm very troubled by what you've been subjected to. I'm sorry. Whatever you've been through, I apologize. So the judge apologized not once, not twice, but 3 times. And not to a victim, not to the public, not even to the concept of law and order, which, by the way, has been on life support longer than CNN. Nope, he apologized to the guy with the shotgun and the knives. But this is where we are. A judge saying, hey, sorry this whole justice system thing is happening to you. My bad. Here I thought judges are supposed to be neutral. That's the whole gig. You wear the robe, you keep your opinions to yourself, and you don't turn the courtroom into a support group for Assassins Anonymous. Allen's lawyers also said officials watching Allen in prison contributed to excessive restrictions on his liberty. Excessive restrictions on liberty? The guy's in jail. Sorry, there's no egg and spoon races or friendship bracelet making in jails. But this is the trend where the system has shifted from accountability to acceptance and even encouragement of violence. This is our criminal justice system now. Lefty prosecutors decline cases, judges minimize consequences, and if you're a victim, good luck. Maybe we'll get to you if you haven't bled to death or limped to a red state. And the media is just as bad. The LA Times romanticizing the D.C. shooter, calling his road to violence a journey from young athlete to accused gunman, during which he organized Bible discussions, as well as the fencing team and the Nerf Club. Wow, sounds like the perfect guy to bring home to your parents right before he blows their heads off for supporting Trump. But these judges are the worst until you hear about the Democrat lawmakers. In New York, they're pushing bills that would let murderers get early parole after they've turned 55 and served 15 years, regardless of their crimes, freeing the worst ghouls like the John Lennon assassin and Son of Sam. And it's already happening in California. So I'm wondering, why such sympathy for the devil? Why the love for assassins, thugs, and murderers? It's not like the left is losing power. They won elections in Seattle and New York, and they did so without violence. And when you look at the so-called assassins, they aren't desperate have-nots. The latest douchebag was from a good family. The same for the guy who wanted to kill Judge Kavanaugh. And of course, there's Luigi and the leftists who started the Palisades fires. These are not people living in squalor. These are people who decided their mission is to take out political opponents. And it's a role that is accepted, even admired by a large faction of the left. You can thank the narrative created by the media and Democrats in which Trump is seen as an existential threat, and the only way to stop it is by removing him or anyone in his circle, and by any means necessary. What you're seeing now is strategic, the removal of pieces from a chessboard. And when the killer reads the room, he will enlist and then is elevated to hero status. So it's not just the killers who are responsible, it's the people like the judge who softened the horror. But who am I to judge? I'm normal. Let's welcome tonight's guest! He looks like the doll you use when asking kids, where did that guy touch you? Comedian Joe Mackey. He beats up more people by 9 a.m. than most people do all day. UFC lightweight champion and headliner of the UFC Freedom 250, Ilya Topuria. Her fans went from Weezer to Wheezing. Host of the Kennedy Saves the World podcast, Kennedy.
Fiddle some old ladies right now.
And he's like a walk-in tub. He makes old ladies wet. Former NWA World Champion, host of the Left podcast, Joe, I go to you first because you have a sound legal mind. Do you think that the judge's feelings about Trump are clouding his judgment, or is it something bigger than that?
I think it's something bigger than that. But first off, Greg, congratulations on having the toughest panel in late-night history. 3 dominant alpha males. You must feel pretty
Hey,
safe.
Katie, that's alpha woman.
There's an alpha
woman there.
Thank you, Tyrus.
Yes, yeah, well, now I'm in the doghouse. But I'll tell you what, Greg, this judge, he made a lot of logical fallacies. First, he compared the defendant in the White House correspondent shooting to January 6th victims, but no one on January 6th rushed the Secret Service and started shooting at people. 2, the January 6th victims, a judge Politico reported, actually that jail was held in contempt for mistreating the January 6th people. 3rd, he was put on suicide watch. I think the government has a vested interest in making sure an assassin, an attempted assassin, isn't murdered, because if he was, all of us right now would be saying, what did Hillary do now? And lastly, Greg, I don't think being in solitary in prison is all that bad. I had some roommates in college that were way worse than that, and they weren't even attempted felons. Like, you know, his mom bought those pretzels with peanut butter inside. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to eat those.
Wow, that's quite a story, Joe. I'm so glad you recovered from that tragedy. Ilya, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. What do you make of the political climate here, the way that, Trump won this election, but there's like a segment of society that thinks it's perfectly okay to advocate for his elimination. And even when he's been attempted assassination at least 3 times, they act like it's no big deal.
Listen, whenever you have a president of a country, rather if you like him or not, you just have to respect him. You don't have to try to kill him.
Yeah.
You just have to let the time pass, and if you don't like him, you select a new president.
But why won't they do that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Me, I never have the desire to kill anyone, so
Oh, well.
I don't have that answer.
I'm not so sure about that. I've seen you fight.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, like you engage in a very violent sport, and the people that talk the most violence are not like you. They're basically shy away from any physical activity.
So there's a huge difference between violence and we are just like professional fighters. My opponent, he knows what's going to happen.
Yes.
So he prepares himself for a fight night. We are professional athletes. And it's not violent. Violence is when you, when you want to beat a guy or anyone that doesn't know how to protect himself, that's violence. But when someone knows what's going to happen and we both fighting in the same conditions, I don't see it as a violence.
That's a good definition. It's like if the guy's not prepared, it's violence unless you paid for it.
Exactly.
Why did you point at me?
Oh, come on, Joe. I remember that weekend. Kennedy, we were talking about this on the 5.
Yes, we
This
were.
judge represents a certain kind of thinking in America that is kind of frightening. Don't you think?
Yeah, the activist judges they have so much power to screw everything up because everyone knows if their personal institution has failed, they appeal to the judiciary. So, I mean, they do it in Congress. Like, they should be debating, they should be passing laws, they should be making the country better, but they don't. They just fight, and then when something doesn't go their way, they sue each other. And the problem is when you have activist judges, it's, justice is no longer blind. She's got her whole palm on the scale because she wants to affect the outcome to make sure that whatever this judge is seeing before them, it is a giant middle finger to their political enemy. And the problem is they are an aspect of the conversation that is normalizing murder and violence and taking advantage of people who either are weak or who are unprotected and making sure that it's okay for the unhinged people like Cole Allen to get at them, to end their lives, because if they can do that and scare people, then that means that they can alter the outcome. So then we live in a big lefty euphoria of jack-offs.
Thank you. Thank you for using the medical terminology, jack off. Tyrus.
Greg.
Joe made a pretty good point there that, like, if he wasn't put on suicide watch and he suicided, they would be blaming probably the Republicans.
Well, they would say that we killed him.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they would have blamed it on one person probably.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Where the hell is this judge when I have to go to court?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but if I'll walk in there looking like Kunta Kinte, which like, so thank God you're here. Are you okay? Is everything fine? Forget about the assaults and all the bad things to you. Do you have a comfortable chair? And I'll be like, actually, it's a little breezy in here, Your Honor. May I have the robe? Why, sure. Because it's like, that's the only thing he's not doing. You know? Maybe some slippers, perhaps some wine before we going into arguments. Like, if that was across the board for everyone would want to go to court.
Yeah.
But what it is it's suicidal empathy.
Yeah.
Gutfeld has a new book out and I'm obsessed with it because it's exactly what it is. As a judge who is in D.C., who is apologizing to a man who, if he would have been at that dinner, would have shot through him.
Right.
Because their empathy is more important than anything else going on, because that's how you get control. Fake martyrdom. And we keep going, why are these judges like this? Why are these people? This is who they are. It's a movement. It's a successful movement. They failed 3 to 4 times, probably more than that than we've even gotten into, but they have successfully, they're in our courts, they're in our politics, they're in our schools, and we are the ones who are insane because we're like, why do they keep doing these things? This is who they are. These judges are going to do that. And in this trial, we really need to watch as much as we can, because you're going to see things that you're going to just be outraged by, because the empathy of protecting false things like he's oppressed. He wasn't oppressed. Only in America can you have that many guns and wear a red tie and everyone's okay with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he runs through the thing, he shoots at people, and they're still like, but the greater good was he was trying to stop the existential threat that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So they're going to continue to do this. Now they're getting people who you can't say are crazy anymore. These are soldiers.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.